Natalie's question, yes, we will post the recording later in the next week, and there will be timestamps as well.
Perfect. Okay, so I think I figured it out. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes? Awesome. Okay, perfect. Okay, so again, I'm Andrea, and I'm the Recruitment and Admissions Officer for the Faculty of Information. So before I go into more detail about the programs that we offer and go over the program overview and admissions and all that fun information, I am going to introduce you to Professor St. Cyr, who's going to focus specifically on one of our probably most popular concentrations, the user experience design concentration. So we're going to give you a bit of an introduction to that, and then we're going to go into more detail about some of the other options that are available to you, and then again through the admission requirements as well. So I'm going to pass it over right now to Professor St. Cyr.
Hello, everyone. Everyone can hear me? Yes. Yeah, Andrea? Yeah,
yes.
Good.
Yes.
So I wanted to share some slides as well. So, but that would mean that you'd have
I'll
to
stop
stop
sharing.
yours.
Perfect.
Okay, great. I don't want to cut you off here. I'll just share some slide here. So first of all, I want to just welcome everybody to this session. My name is Olivier St. Cyr, and I'm a professor at the Faculty of Information at the St. George campus downtown. I teach both in the master's program and in the bachelor's of information program, but I focus mainly on the master's program as I'm the liaison for the UX concentration. So as Andrea mentioned, our UX concentration is a very popular option for many students. We started the program or the concentration 4 years ago, and we had 32 students, and now we're up to almost 140 to 150 students a year who are in this concentration. So it's been growing quite a bit. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what to expect when it comes to user experience. We look specifically at user goals, content, interaction, and business goals. So these are the 4 components that our program is made of. So we take a very sort of user-centric, so-called user-centric approach to the teaching. So understanding what are the users' goals, their needs, their pain points, their obstacles, then understanding what content, which is the information, which is why we're located in the Faculty of Information, right? What content the user needs to interact with, and how to lay out this content and how to make sense of it, how to organize it, how to architect it. We have a course called Information Architecture, which is really architecting the content. Then we look specifically at interaction methods. So people have goals that they need to achieve, and they have content that they need to interact with. And there's several interaction design mechanisms in order to do this. So we have a course specifically on user interface design, which focuses on the interaction and the specific techniques that people use to interact with content to achieve their goals. And then towards the end of the concentration, we have a more sort of a business capstone type of approach where you get matched with a partner organization and you work on a capstone project and you focus on really understanding the value that user experience is adding to businesses, not just for-profit businesses. We also work a lot with nonprofit organization across the GTA through a community engaged learning program that I developed. And but it's important to understand that the field of user experience, it doesn't just add value for users, but it also adds values to organization. And then we look at what are some of these values that we add to organization with respect to the goals of these organizations. So that makes up kind of our UX program in a nutshell. We have a wonderful team of professors. We just added 2 more recently. They're starting with us in January 2021. So I'm really excited about this because when I started the program in 2016, I was the only one. So, so therefore I was teaching all the courses and the students saw me a lot, which is, I guess, good to some extent because I knew what I was teaching them, but at the same time, it's good to have multiple perspectives as well. So there's myself here. And then there's also Professor Tang that joined us a year and a half ago. Professor Pandeleev, that is our game user interaction design specialist and our user interface design specialist. Anastasia Kuzminik is joining us in January 1st, and Priyank Chandra is joining us in January 1st. Anastasia focuses on what the very popular field of agent interaction, voice interaction, chatbot interaction, all that kind of conversational user interfaces. And Dr. Chandra Priyank is specializing on designed for marginalized community and marginalized users. So we're very happy to have them join our program. In terms of the courses that you will do in this concentration, we have 5 required courses. So everybody starts with the foundation course, which is the foundation of UX, which is offered in the fall of every semester. It's a very intensive studio-based course to kind of level everybody. Then we have a course, like as I mentioned before, information architecture to understand how to architect content on displays. We have a course which is our user-centered design and systems development course, which touches on user research and what are user-centered methodologies to study these users' goals. We have a course on interaction design through the user interface design course. And at the end, we have the capstone course, which is representing UX, where you do a project with an organization. In between these 2 terms here, the winter of your first year and winter of your second year, we have quite a bit of students who do co-ops. So our co-op options in UXD is very fruitful as well. Often we have almost like 40 to 50% of the students in co-op in general or in the UX concentration. I just want to point out also that we have a range of elective courses that we do offer if you want to further do some more UX. We have video game for UX courses, accessibility, usability assessment. We have mixed reality systems. We have a new course called Information Communication Technology and Design and Marginality. A new course that I just introduced a week ago, in fact, called UX Leadership and Communication. And we have a course on interaction design and an advanced course on interaction design. Portfolio is very important in UX. It is not required to get into the program, but as soon as you get into the program, you start working in your portfolio right away in the first semester class, because this is your key to co-op interview, to employment interview. We found that in general, a lot of our UX graduate needs solid portfolio in order to go to the industry and get a job. So we start you very, very early. If you already have a portfolio, then good. You can start improving yours or adding to it. But if you don't have one, don't worry about it. We get started right away in the first semester and you keep on working on it until the end of the concentration. So I'm just going to answer now the most popular question that I get is, do I need some technical background to get into UXD? Do I need to know how to program computers? Do I need programming language background? And the answer is no. This is not a programming concentration. We do design. So we use a lot of tools such as Balsamic, InVision, Figma, a lot of design tools that allow you to build prototype and build user interfaces. They're mainly drag and drop tools in which you build your screen and you link all the screen together. So it is not a front-end development program. We do not teach you how to code user interfaces. We teach you how to design user interfaces. So in that sense, everyone is welcome. The people who are from all kinds of backgrounds, sometimes people are from the humanities, from engineering, from computer science, from life sciences, biology, et cetera, et cetera. You don't need to be a computer programmer to get into this concentration. So that's all the spiel that I have. I don't know, Andrea, if we were planning to take some questions or not. Like, yes. I'm available, but I don't know what the flow of the presentation is. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So at this point, before we move on to the rest of the presentation, if anybody does have any questions right now for Professor St. Cyr, please ask your questions.
Feel free to unmute yourself or either just text it in the chat if you're not comfortable being on camera.
I think Rund has her hand up, so we can.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, what are some positions that people should expect to get after like doing the concentration? I know like user experience designer is one, but is there other streams that you can get into?
Yeah, so some people do that. User experience designer is probably the most popular title. There's also user experience researcher. Some people love to focus a little bit more on the research and less on the design. So they're more comfortable like talking with people and getting information and then passing that information, like digesting it obviously and passing it to designers. We also have people who become information architect. We have people who eventually will try to become product managers. So this is kind of it might be a little difficult to get right at the time of graduation because product managers are normally not junior type position. They're a little bit more advanced, but after 2 to 3 years of experience, a little bit of a natural flow out of user experience is to become a product manager, because at that point you manage the entire suite of product, not just the experience, but the experience is obviously part of it, right? We have people who do also library science or museum studies and couple this with UX, and they become like either UX librarian or sort of interaction designers or exhibition designers in museum, but using a user experience background to help them with their project. I would say the most popular title, you hit it on it, like it's a user experience designer, but designer is a very broad title. So I found that in smaller companies, they have often user experience designers as a title, but if you go to the bigger company, they'll start breaking the roles down a little bit more, and then you'll have people focusing on research, people focusing on design, people focusing on testing, like, so there's a lot more variety in terms of the titles.
And
I hope
Christina
that-
Park, who's one of our UX alums, she's here as well, and she's going to talk about her current role as well and what she's doing right now.
I hope that
Perfect. Sounds
answers your
good.
question. Like,
Yes, it did. Thank you.
great. Any other questions for me?
I can ask a second question.
Sure. I mean,
If nobody
I
has
don't
any
have
questions.
Yeah, sure.
I know there's multiple concentrations that are offered at the iSchool. Is there a complementary concentration that you could take alongside the UX?
That's a good question. So it really depends on your interest, to be honest, and what you aim to become, or what you kind of love to some extent. As I said, we have some people who do user experiences and archives, or user experiences and museum, or user experiences in library. These three concentration, or museum is actually a program on its own. It's not just a concentration, but these four things. I would think that this is for people who are more interested in applying UX to the GLAM sector. The GLAM sector means gallery, library, archive, and museum. So they're interested in digital cultural preservation of information, right? So that's one aspect that some people focus on. The other aspect is coupling UX with another technical concentration. So either human-centered data science or information systems design. So that is probably, I would have to say, the most common coupling with UXD. People want to learn UX, which is the front-end development or front-end design, and they want to also learn how the data is modeled on the back end, which is information systems design, right? And how the two relate to one another. The human-centered data science is also very popular with user experience design, because a lot of people are interested in the data processing and the data mining and all that. So finally, we have a few people who do either UX and critical information policy study, or UX and culture and technology. And these are the people who want to understand the impact of design on culture and society. So for example, right now we know that in user interfaces, there's a lot of dark patterns. There's a lot of companies or user interface that are forcing us to click buttons in a certain way so that it advantages them and it disadvantages us, right? Like, it's not normal that there's about 41 steps to delete an account on Amazon, right? But it's made like that so that you don't delete your account and you actually give up deleting your account, because we know that from a user experience, if there are too many steps in a task, people give up. So they purposely designed the system like that, so to force people to give up, which is called a dark pattern of interaction. So there are some people in critical information policy studies or culture and technology who are interested in studying these types of dark patterns and interface behaviors and interaction behaviors and how they affect society. So really, like it's almost like we have a lot of different combinations, but I would say to be like the information systems design and the human-centered data science is the one that is most often combined with UXD.
Thank you.
No problem.
Sorry, I just also have one more question to kind of like add on top of that is, so how much freedom do we have in terms of switching between the concentrations? Maybe like, let's say if we go into UXC for a first year, but we found that like halfway through, it wasn't something that I expected. And like, would it be too late to kind of like hop around concentrations?
No, I'm going to talk about that in today's presentation as well.
Good. I know the answer, but Andrea is so much better at me to explain it. Any other questions that I can answer? As I said, the most popular question that I get is, do I need to know how to program computers and to write code in order to get into UX? So once you've passed that question, then it's a lot. We have a lot more students like that are joining our program. So yeah. Great. Well, I'm not hearing any other questions, or Andrea, I'm not seeing anything else in the chat either. So
perfect. Thank you so very much.
No problem. No problem. And if you go to the UXD concentration page on the website, then you'll find my name there as the contact person for the concentration. And I have a website and an email. So you can always, like I often answer like a question from prospective students. So we have also quite a bit of ICCIT graduate in our program. I'd have to say, I know Professor Cosmin Montanu very well. We've known each other for 12 years. So I know what he's teaching you in 380, 485, and 480. So we have every year we get about like 15 to 20-ish people from ICCIT who take the UXD concentrations. So if you know someone maybe who graduated last year from CCIT and is currently in the iSchool, it might be a good idea also to connect with them. Or I can connect you with some people as well from ICCIT, former graduate who are now in the UXD concentration or who have graduated a few years ago as well. So
perfect.
Great.
Great. Thank you very much.
No problem. Have a good day and have a good rest of your day. And then good luck with the rest of your term. You're almost there. So don't give up. Almost there. Bye. See you, Andrea.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. And so now I'm just going to continue with some of the other options. I think I started sharing my screen again. Hopefully you can all see that. Oops, let's go back here. Okay. So I'm going to kind of give you an overview of some of the other things that you might explore as a student in the Faculty of Information. I first want to start off by kind of introducing you to the Faculty of Information outside of the UX concentration, which we've obviously already heard about. But again, just to get you more familiar about some of the other areas that you can specialize in or focus on as a student. And oftentimes, you know, when I go to events, people are unfamiliar with what the Faculty of Information is. They often ask me about, you know, questions that have to do with anything in the world, including where's the bathroom. So I can't tell you that today, but I can definitely tell you about some of the other wonderful opportunities that we do have available within the Faculty of Information. So I'm going to start off with a series of questions. These are rhetorical questions, so you don't actually have to answer them, just to kind of get you thinking about some of the other topics. So have you ever wondered how Google Ads seem to reflect what you've been thinking and talking about? Or have you ever wondered who owns your data on social media sites? So if all of a sudden you had looked up on the screens in downtown Toronto and you recognized a picture from your Facebook page of you and your friends laughing for a Coors Light ad, and you weren't even or don't even drink Coors Light, would you want compensation for that? And would you be obliged to get compensation for that? Have you ever wondered how we will manage the growing pile of data, pictures, and records that we're creating every day? Or whether AI will turn out to be dangerous? Or why it's sometimes really hard to find what you're looking for on the website? This is what we do within the Faculty of Information. So our faculty generates information professionals, and you're going to find these information professionals working within both the public and the private sectors and in every industry to ensure that the creation of policies, programs, and strategies that will benefit humankind. So you're going to find these professionals building systems, curating objects, managing records, navigating, collaborating, and creating. We are immersed in topics such as privacy and security, digital information management, how to retrieve and store information, how to improve the user experience in designed media, how to bridge tech and business services within an organization to achieve greater results, how to facilitate knowledge transfer, just to name a few. So these are, again, are just some of the topics that you might explore as a student within the Faculty of Information. So this chart right here kind of gives you a overview or a breakdown of the different pathways that are available within our two master's programs. So again, I'm going to focus specifically on the Masters of Information program. And there are different pathways that you can pursue within this concentration. So we have 8 concentrations. Again, you already learned about the user experience design concentration, but one of the concentrations is called the concentration pathway. So you can choose 1 or 2 of the concentrations to focus on. And so each of the concentrations typically have around 5 to 6 required courses, and then the rest of your courses would be electives. To finish your MI degree, you do need to complete a total of 16 half courses. So if a concentration has 6, for example, then you have 10, which would be your electives. If you chose 2 concentrations, you still have room there to take additional courses in any of the other concentrations that you're interested in. You don't even have to choose the concentration at all. You can do a general program pathway and just take courses in any of the concentrations that interest you the most. So you don't actually have to select a specific concentration to focus on. Somebody asked earlier if it's easy to switch concentrations. Yes, absolutely. You can add, remove, change concentrations anytime throughout your program. And then the courses you've taken towards that concentration obviously would just go towards your electives. So you're not adding any more time to your degree. If you thought maybe you're interested in user experience design when you first came in, but then thought, maybe I don't want to do a concentration at all, or I want to switch concentrations, you're welcome to do that anytime throughout your program. So don't worry about that. And then you're not, and so just to also to point out another fact, you're not actually applying to a concentration. So you're applying to the MI program and choosing a concentration. So we don't limit admission based on a concentration. So again, there's a lot of flexibility there to take courses in any of the areas that you're interested in. Then you can do a concentration and a thesis option. So if you are interested more in research, so students who are interested in maybe moving on to a PhD afterwards might choose the thesis option. I'd say probably about a handful of our students choose the thesis option. A lot of our students would typically be interested in the co-op option. You certainly don't have to do the co-op option. Because we're a professional master's program, we do have experiential learning opportunities built into the program. So as Professor St. Cyr already mentioned a few, such as the capstone project and some other hands-on projects that you're going to be working on within your courses, all of our concentrations have that component to it. So don't worry if you think you might want to co-op now, but if your mind changes later, then that's completely okay as well. Co-op is not for everybody, but the way the co-op works is it would be typically between your first and second year. So it is a 2-year program. Your fall and winter terms, you're going to be taking courses. You do have to complete 8 half courses before you can start the co-op, and then the co-op term would start in your summer. term. And so you can either choose to do 2 4-month co-op positions with 2 different companies, or 1 8-month co-op position. And so you can choose to take courses if you want while doing your co-op, so that you're not taking courses into the next summer, so you can still finish by the winter term of the next year. Or if you choose not to take courses alongside your co-op, then you would complete the remaining of your courses in the summer term, and then finish still within that 2 years. And so those are, you can't do a co-op and a thesis, just because it's not feasible for you to be able to do that, just because the requirements to fulfill both of those components would just be too much for you to be able to include both at the same time. However, if you chose to do a thesis, for example, or even the general program pathway, you can still do a co-op with the general program pathway, but you can also do a practicum if you want. So if you didn't want to do the co-op, you can do a practicum. And a lot of students typically like the practicum because it offers more flexibility than a co-op might offer. So what a practicum is we have employers who send us their projects and their project proposals, and you get to choose the company and the project that you want to work on. So sometimes a practicum can be more geared towards your interests, depending on the project that you choose. A co-op, you're working for a company doing whatever they need you to do. A practicum is unpaid. A co-op is typically paid, but the practicum is a course that you just enroll in and you take it alongside your other courses. The other thing the co-op does is, if you do choose that, is it does replace 3 courses. So instead of taking 3 additional courses, you would get credit for the co-op. And so some students then decide they rather take courses with a practicum rather than missing out on those courses with the co-op option. So there are many options. You don't have to decide any of those pathways right now. You don't have to decide about the thesis, the general program pathway, the co-op option. You don't have to decide any of that now. You would decide once you're actually in the program. If you're choosing the thesis option, again, that doesn't start until your winter term as well. So again, you still have time for that. And then in addition to the concentrations, we also have what are called collaborative specializations. And these are partnerships that we have with different departments at U of T. So if there's another area that you want to take courses in and specialize in, you can certainly add a collaborative specialization to your program. And it doesn't add any time to your degree. It just means that the courses you're taking as your electives would be geared towards that specific specialization. You do have to apply separately to that different program, that collaborative specialization, again, because it is another department at U of T. But again, you don't have to decide that now. If you wanted to add a collaborative specialization once you're already in the program, you can certainly do that. And so a lot of times the admission requirements are the same as what your admission requirements would have been to get into the MI program. It's also available with the Museum Studies program as well. And so you just want to make sure that you're looking on that specific U of T website to find out what those application requirements and deadlines are. A lot of them have rolling deadlines. So again, you can apply for them anytime throughout the year. Book history and print culture is a really popular one. And so they typically have a deadline of April 1st. So just make sure if you're not applying for it at the same time, or your incoming year and you're applying for it the next year, just make sure you're, again, paying attention to what those deadlines are. And then we have what's called a combined degree program. And so for those of you who are interested in doing both the Masters of Information and Masters of Museum Studies program, you can do both, and it'll take you 3 years to complete rather than the 4 years that it would have taken you if you did the 2 programs separately. And one of our other student speakers that will be joining us today, Sydney, that's the option that she did. She did both the Masters of Information and Masters of Museum Studies program. So the combined degree program, it allows students to gain greater expertise and strengths in the cross-section of museum studies and information. And it's ideal for students with interests in museum informatics, digital cultural heritage, cultural information policy, the intersection of cultural memory institutions, so libraries, archives, and museums, digital curation, and the use of social networking technologies in museums. And again, it would be a 3-year program. Okay, so what are we looking for admissions? The applications are now open and available through the School of Graduate Studies website. Apply by January 31st if you would like to automatically be considered for entrance awards and scholarships. So admission awards scholarships are highly competitive, and we do require a minimum A- average and all of your supporting materials and documents to be submitted by January 31st. And so the way we calculate that average is in 2 ways, and we calculate it the same way as your admission GPA, which I'll talk about in the next slide. But we take either your CGPA, your entire 4 years, or your final year only, and we take whichever of the two is highest. The final year is not necessarily your last year of study. It's going to be a year's worth of senior level courses. So your last 5 full or 10 half, 3rd or 4th year courses is how we'll calculate your final year average. So for admission awards and scholarships, we're looking for about an A- average for those entrance awards, those automatic entrance awards. And I'm going to talk about finances a little bit later as well. The regular application deadline is March 31st, and the deadline for all your supporting documents is April 15th. However, I do not recommend waiting until the final deadline to apply, as we do admit on a rolling basis, and the program may become full by the time your application is received. So the sooner you apply, the sooner you will receive a decision. Okay, so a little bit about what we're looking for you to include in your application. We do accept students from all academic backgrounds, as Professor St. Cyr had already mentioned. We do have students with a background in social sciences, humanities, computer science and engineering, finance, history, English, and so on. So we don't favor certain courses or programs. For a GPA, we're looking for about a B+ average. Again, that's either your CGPA or your final year average, whichever of the two is highest. And again, your final year would be your 3rd or 4th year courses. Transcripts. So at the time of the application, we only ask for your unofficial transcript to make a decision. So if you've only gone to U of T, you can just send us an email. I'll provide my email at the end of the presentation, just giving us permission to access your transcript, so you don't have to actually upload anything. We can access your transcript for you as long as you give us permission to do that. You want to upload copies of all post-secondary transcripts to your online application portal. So if you've attended an institution other than U of T, you're going to have to upload those transcripts as well. We don't need secondary school transcripts or your high school transcripts, so please don't provide those. If you are offered admission, the offer will be conditional upon receiving an official transcript. And in order for a transcript to be considered official, it must come to the Faculty of Information in a sealed unopened envelope. But again, with your U of T transcript, if we access it on your behalf, then that will be considered official and we won't need one at that point. We are also looking for references. So once you've paid the application fee, you'll be directed to a referee information page where you can provide us with the name and contact information for your referees. And as soon as you save this information to your applicant profile, they'll automatically receive a referee form to complete. And then it automatically gets uploaded to your applicant file. We do require 2 academic references for admission consideration. A 3rd optional reference is permitted, which can be academic or professional. However, you should only consider adding an additional reference if you're certain that it'll be as strong as your other 2 required references. Otherwise, don't bother submitting a 3rd one. If you did last graduate more than 5 years ago, you can substitute professional letters of recommendation instead. But if it's been less than 5 years, then 2 academic is required. If you are submitting a professional reference, you just want to make sure you let your referees know that they should focus on skills that are relevant within a graduate level program. So your critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, research writing, communication skills, and so on. We're also looking for an academic resume or CV. So you want to include information such as your educational background, relevant professional work experience, both paid and unpaid, any publications you may have written, professional activities that you're involved in, such as committees and associations, any awards or honors or grants or fellowships that you might have received. So all the information that you think maybe you haven't been able to include in a statement, for example, or in your application, you want to include it in your resume. And there is no page limit to your resume. English proficiency. So for applicants where English is not your first language, this wouldn't apply for you if you're a U of T student. And that requirement can certainly be waived if you are coming from U of T. So your statement of intent is really important. You want to focus a lot of your attention on that. But we do review files on a holistic basis, so we don't look at one part of your application higher than another. So it is all looked at equally. But you definitely want to make sure that you are spending time on your personal statement. So as a future participant in information and museum fields, you'll be responsible for the management of information, knowledge, and culture in an ever-changing world. And it is important to the Faculty of Information that we're educating and empowering information and museum professionals that are and will be grounded in the values of equity, diversity, and inclusion. So we do encourage you to reflect on these concepts as you prepare your application. In the first part of your essay, we want to learn more about you. So your vision for graduate studies and your subsequent professional career afterwards. So what made you decide to apply to the Faculty of Information? How do your academic, professional, or personal experiences, your future aspirations align with our MI program? Which concentrations best suit your interests and why? What topics, problems, or questions would you like to explore during your studies? What are your career goals, and do you intend to apply for co-op, and why? Upon graduation, how do you see yourself contributing to the information or museum industry? What does it mean to you to be an information professional? So these are just a few guidelines and points that you might want to consider adding to the first part of your statement. It is a two-part statement. So again, the first part's really just to learn more about you and your goals and why you might be a good fit for the program. And the second part, you should feel free to provide examples from your personal and professional academic experiences. We're looking for you to answer one of 4 questions. And all of this is found up on our website. And we hope to better understand your interpersonal skills and self-reflective capabilities. And they typically fall into 4 general categories. So the 4 questions that you get to choose from will fall into 4 different categories. And they surround the different topics that you're going to explore basically within the Faculty of Information and as a student. So teamwork, there's a lot of group work, group projects that you're going to be working on as a student. So we want to, I guess, kind of gauge your experience with that. And then equity, diversity, inclusion is another topic. Coping with change, especially, you know, with the times now with COVID. How do you cope with change? What are the benefits of it, and so on. And then managing multiple priorities. Obviously, as a master's student, you're going to have to do that. And so we kind of want to learn a little bit more about you. So you're going to choose one of 4 questions to answer there. And again, all of this information is found up on our website. So make sure you are looking at the How to Apply tab so that you can find what those specific guidelines are for your statement and all of your other supporting documents that I just spoke about. Money matters. So this chart, this is the cost for 1 year of the program, and it is based on 2020-21 amounts. So the School of Graduate Studies will post the new tuition amounts usually in July, but it'll roughly be around the same amount as you see here. You don't have to pay for the entire year at once. You can pay per term. So at the start of the fall term, at the start of the winter term. Part-time students will pay the equivalent of full-time program fees. So the cost isn't less by doing the program part-time. It just means that the payments are spread over a longer period of time. So just keep in mind that if you don't make a payment in the summer, you will have what's called a balance of degree fee. So at the end of your studies, you will be required to pay that balance, which would be the remaining amount owing of tuition. So students in professional master's programs, including the Masters of Information and Masters of Museum Studies program, typically fund their educational expenses through a variety of different programs. So I've broken it down into 3 categories to make it a bit easier. So financial aid is typically based on financial need. Awards and scholarships are typically merit-based, and some require an application and some don't. And then employment on or off campus. And most of our students do receive OSAP, so some form of other government loan if you are coming from outside of Ontario, or for students coming up outside of Ontario. For students receiving OSAP, your financial need information will be sent to us directly. For students receiving out-of-province student loans, you will complete what's called the out-of-province financial aid application form that's found on our website. And this will allow you to be eligible for other financial assistance that we might have available. So other parts of financial aid or other categories, there is what's called a PMFA. And this is a grant that attempts to fill a portion of the financial gap for full-time students who receive the maximum amount of government financial aid available, but whose funding doesn't cover the entire cost of a university. So we try to make up the difference there. Emergency grants. So if you do encounter an unexpected emergency situation, like your house flooded, or you lost your apartment, or you can't pay for food for that month, you can apply for the emergency grant. Students with disabilities. So students with permanent disabilities may receive funds through the Canada Student Grant for persons with permanent disabilities as part of their OSAP funding. But in addition, grants are also available through the Ontario Bursary for Students with Disabilities, as well as the Canada Student Grant for Services and Equipment for persons with permanent disabilities. And this will help with disability-related supports and services. You can also take on a line of credit if you wish. The University of Toronto has partnered with Scotiabank to provide a preferred interest rate to U of T students. You certainly don't have to go with the Scotia Professional Plan if you don't want to. Of course, you can apply for a line of credit with whichever financial institution you're most comfortable with. I've already spoken a little bit about the automatic entrance awards. So again, your complete application, including references, do need to be submitted by January 31st. And we're looking for an A- average. And those are the automatic awards that you don't apply for. But in addition to those automatic awards, there are additional scholarships that can be found through the School of Graduate Studies website, as well as the University of Toronto website, that do require an application. So make sure you are logging on to those 2 sites to find more opportunities there. We also encourage you to apply for an external government award, such as an OGS, the Ontario Graduate Scholarship, or the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada, the SSHRC Award. And these amounts range anywhere from $15,000 to $17,500. So you definitely want to look into those government awards. It's important to note, though, the deadline for these awards is much sooner than your application to the program. So you want to start looking into them now, because for SSHRC, for example, the deadline is December 2nd. So you definitely want to look into applying for those early. And then other School of Graduate Studies or faculty awards might include things like in-course or current student scholarships, completion awards, travel and conference awards, international student awards, the omnibus awards. The application will open up on August 1st, and they are for in-course awards that you can apply for. And so come August, you'll be able to complete that one application, which will show you which of the scholarships and awards you would be eligible for based on the criteria that you outlined in that application. And then finally, employment. So many of our students do work part-time while studying. The WorkSay program is a great option as it's convenient because you're already on campus. We have a lot of WorkSay positions that come up within our office, as well as anywhere else at U of T as well. And then on our website, we've provided a general timeline on big items that you should keep an eye out for. So make sure, again, that you go onto our website to find when you should be applying for certain awards and things like that. So this slide, we do have a dedicated careers office that can help you identify your strengths, determine your career objectives, and help you develop a plan. So we're very lucky to have 2 careers advisors specifically for iSchool students to help you do that. We have employer showcase and networking events that happen throughout the year. So a lot of recruiters and employers who come on campus to hire our students for co-op, for practicum, for full-time jobs after you graduate. Our alumni are actively engaged in supporting students through the Ask an Alum program and job shadowing programs. And you will have access to MI and museum related jobs through our online job site, again, specifically for iSchool students. So a little bit more about the different careers that are available. So we have this slide just kind of gives you an example of some of the careers that our students have gone into, some of the companies and the positions that they've been able to get after they've graduated from the program. This is specifically for the MI. There's a much larger list found on our website. These are just a few examples listed here that you can have a look at, but definitely, again, make sure that you're looking onto our career section of the website to find a much larger list of different examples. And then for anyone who is interested, this slide just kind of gives you an example of the museum studies jobs that are also available as well. And then this is my contact information for anybody who does have any questions for me after today. So I'm certainly happy, obviously, to answer any questions that you have today. But if you do have any other questions after today, definitely feel free to message me anytime, and I'm happy to answer them for you. So what I can do now is I could answer some of your questions now, and then we can move on to our student speakers then, if that works for everybody.
So I can start that off. I just wanted to ask, will the job shadowing program be available this year online, or is that not happening anymore?
It is, yeah. So everything is still happening right now, like our co-op positions, our practicum positions, our job shadowing. It's all being done virtually right now.
Okay, and when does the job shadow program usually operate in?
Usually it's anytime throughout the year. So if you go actually onto the website and click on the job shadowing program, you'll be able to connect with employers through there. And then we also have an Ask an Alum program. So we definitely encourage you to even go onto the Ask an Alum program right now, and you can reach out to some of our alumni and ask them questions about their experiences in the program. So definitely feel free to do that right now as well.
Thank you. Okay, we got a few questions in the chat. Can you explain the grades again?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're looking for about a B+ average, either your CGPA, your entire 4 years, or your final year only. The final year only, we're looking at your senior level courses only. So it's going to be a year's worth of 3rd or 4th year courses. So your last 5 full or 10 half 3rd or 4th year courses is what makes up your final year average. And we take whichever of the two is highest. So if your average is slightly below a B+, we still encourage you to apply, again, because we do look at files on a holistic basis. So it's not just about grades. We are looking at all other aspects of your application as well. So definitely still apply, even if it's slightly below the B+.
Thank you. So I'm just gonna ask you 2 questions that I've gotten earlier. So can you talk about the requirements for the 6-year undergrad plus master's for the program for the people in CCIT program and how that works?
Mm-hmm. So the joint with the CCIT program and the master's program, that option is currently under review. So it's not currently an option to apply to at this time. But certainly we still have a lot of CCIT students apply to our master's program after the completion of your undergraduate degree.
And could you talk about the part-time study in MI?
Mm-hmm, yeah. So part-time students, are allowed to take a maximum of 2 courses per term. So summer is an optional term, so you can still take courses over the summer. So you would do 2 in the fall, 2 in the winter, 2 in the summer if you wish. And then you would still be able to finish it probably within 3.5 years if you do that. And then so courses for part-time students aren't any different. The timing of the courses isn't any different. Courses typically run 3 times throughout the day. So 9 to 12, 1 to 4, or 6:30 to 9:30. And you would just pick the time slots that fit your schedule the best. And so we do try to offer as many of the required courses in the evening as possible, but there may be times where you may have to come to a class during the day. And currently with the COVID situation, all of our classes are being taught online, but traditionally we're an in-person program, and we would like to return to an in-person instruction as soon as it's safe to do so. Definitely not before it's safe to do so, obviously, but we will eventually be going back to in-person instruction. But as we're not really sure right now what, the fall 2021 is going to look like quite yet. But as of right now, all of our courses are being taught online.
I have a question about the double blue entry. So I know that you can apply without handing in a personal statement. Yeah. So can you talk more about that?
Absolutely. So the benefit with the double blue is for U of T current students or alumni, and it's a fast track admissions consideration. And so the benefits of it is you would receive a sooner decision. So the reviewing timeline for double blue applicants is 2 weeks. Whereas the normal review process is between 4 to 6 weeks is when you would receive a decision. The other benefit is there's a $500 scholarship that you would be awarded. And then in addition to the entrance scholarships that you would be eligible for. So you would still be considered for those ones as well. And then instead of the personal statement that you would submit, you would actually come in for a short interview instead. So the interview would basically be pretty much information that you would have written likely in your statement, but it'll be more of a discussion with the admissions committee instead. And then you would receive a decision shortly after that interview.
And then would your supporting documents have to be sent in before the January 31st or?
So just by January 31st. So your resume and your references would have to be submitted by January 31st.
Okay.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask on top of that. So for the double blue entry, I saw online that we have to have a required CGPA of A-. So we can only apply for the double blue entry if we have an A- and above.
Right. You would only be considered for the double blue if you have an A-, or above. You can apply for it. It's just you likely won't be selected for it.
Hi, I just want to confirm that if I have 12 courses in my last year, will you only look at the 10 courses with highest grades or something like
so
that?
If you have more than third or fourth year courses, you mean in?
Yes, I have 12 in my last year. Where you only look at the 10 courses with the highest grade.
Yeah, so we're going to look at your most recent for sure. But if you do have more than the 10, then yes, we'll look at your highest.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So I have a question to follow up with a double entry question. So is it more competitive to do the double entry versus doing the regular admissions? Because I'm just thinking, would it be better to write the statement or would it be better to apply and do the interview?
It's definitely completely up to you. It's if you, for example, were not eligible through the double blue entry, it doesn't mean that we're going to just deny you admission. You can still be considered through the regular admission process. So it's completely up to you. You can try for the double blue, and then if you aren't admitted through that way, then you would just submit your statement and still be considered through the regular admissions process.
Oh, okay. So you have 2 options.
Absolutely.
Okay, makes sense.
We've got another question in the chat. So Is the work experience mandatory to include for the CV?
No, it's not mandatory. We don't require applicants to have any work experience. I would say we have a very good mix of students within our program. So I would say, we certainly have about half of our students who are coming directly from an undergraduate degree. And then I would say the other half are coming, either they've been out in the workforce for 5, 10, 20 years, some who already hold a master's degree, some who hold a PhD. So there's a very good mix of different applicants.
You mentioned earlier that if you did any other post-secondary that you have to send in the transcripts for that, even if you didn't finish it. Like I did a year at Ryerson, so that has to be sent in.
Yes.
So would that be also considered in the CGPA calculation?
No, it's your most recent bachelor's degree that would be used as the GPA calculation.
Okay, thank you.
It's just all institutions require you to submit all post-secondary transcripts for all of your education legally.
I just wanted to ask a quick question on like the statement of interest. So is there a page limit to the statement of interest, like per part, or?
Not per part, just in total, no longer than 4 pages, but it's up to you how long you make each of the 2 statements.
Okay, so Andrea, we've actually have a couple of more questions that some students asked when they signed up for the event. Would you just give us a few minutes to pull that out, please?
Absolutely. If we want, we can maybe move into the student experience right now. We can talk to Christina and Sydney, and then we can move on to some more questions after that. Does that sound okay? Awesome. Christina Park, I saw you come in.
Yes.
Awesome. Hi.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, let me share my
I'm going to stop sharing so you can share.
Yes, sounds good. Thank you. Let me see. Okay. Share. Does that look okay? You see the full screen? Yeah? Okay, perfect. So thank you everyone for having me here. It's a pleasure to come back to U of T to talk about my experience at the Faculty of Information. So for today, I'll talk about 4 things about me so you can get to know me better, and then 3 of my best of iSchool experience, very personal perspective, and 2 things that I wish I knew while I was an iSchool student. And I'll end with 1 tip for students who's considering joining this program. So let's begin. So currently, I'm a designer at IBM. I was involved in 2 departments. So I work with AI products and services. And most recently, I transitioned to my team where we work on enterprise compilation technology. I've held various roles. I've done user research, UX design, and most recent role involves more content design and UX writing. This photo over here is one of my team that I work with back in early this year when we were in Austin, Texas, and we were working in that studio. So in 2018, this was my 2nd year at iSchool. I used to work on my own startup with an iSchool colleague. The photo here, we went into a competition and we actually won some support to build our startup. But as you can tell, it didn't go that far. Hence, I work at IBM now, and my friend works at another company as a UX designer. But regardless, I just wanted to talk about how there's a lot of motivated and passionate students that you're working with to try something new and experience something during the program. So back in 2017, this is when I finished my undergrad. And I actually had a very different career aspirations, and it didn't involve working in a giant tech company. For my undergrad, I wanted to be a math and visual arts teacher. So I went to Teachers College and I walked out with a teaching degree. After that, I wanted to kind of explore graphic design. So I went abroad to Bauhaus, studied graphic design and worked as a graphic designer for about 5 years. And then the most recent one was to be a museum professional. So I was really close to art and I wanted to kind of explore the art education within museums. So I worked about a year at an art gallery up in Markham. So that being said, when I started at the iSchool back in 2017, I honestly knew nothing about UX. I chose it because the program sounded interesting, but honestly, I had no prior exposure or experience in UX discipline. So talking about the program, these are my 3 best things about studying at Faculty of Information. So first of all, I found that the fellow classmates had a really diverse and interdisciplinary backgrounds. They had very different academic and work experiences. So when you get to work with them and get to know them better, you kind of start to see things in different ways and learn a lot from your peers. Secondly, I found that the professors at the faculty are very passionate educators and who cares for their students. This was to be successful in your academics, but also beyond that. Lastly, I felt that there was a good balance between the practical and academic learning. You really get to grow as a master's student academically, but at the same time, there's a lot of experiential learning opportunities that you can be ready for your job market once you walk out from your professional master's. So 2 things that I wish I knew at the start of my studies. I wish that I wasn't so nervous and full of doubt. I initially thought that choosing this program, I was really going somewhere very different from what I used to be interested in and what I'm really familiar with. But it turns out pursuing this program opened a lot of doors. I was able to leverage my experience and my education from before to apply that to different industries, different opportunities, and be involved in experiences like startups and working at a tech company. Secondly, I wished that I knew that field of UX is very broad. We talk a lot about creating apps or websites, but UX can be much more than that. There's business strategy that you can apply your UX design thinking to, marketing strategy, designing for fellow designers' experiences, HR, architectural design, urban planning, wayfinding. And these are all the places you can apply UX knowledge. You can also work with different technologies, AI, mobile apps, website, virtual realities, augmented realities, hardware devices. So it's very limitless as to where you want to take this knowledge to. So let me end with my one little tip for future students. And that is to take advantage of the flexibility of the program and flexibility of the field. There's so many skills you can bring in. I've listed some of them, and it doesn't really mean that you have to be skilled at everything. The unique combination that you bring in makes you a unique designer. Some things are storytelling, facilitation, different communication skills. You might be more of a visual person, or it might be more comfortable with written communications. Different technical knowledge and subject matter expertise can also help to contribute to be in UX career. Within the faculty, there's so many courses to choose from. You could choose one concentration and you can still explore so many more offerings, and museum studies courses are still offered to you to choose also outside of the faculty. So you can take business courses, engineering courses while you're pursuing this degree at U of T. And lastly, there's so many industries for you to be working in. I've personally been involved in education, government, and healthcare, but there's so much beyond that: arts and culture, accessibility, gaming and entertainment. Just anything that involves humans and information is where you can end up in. So that concludes my presentation. I'll take the questions at the end after Sydney, but feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or email if you have any more questions.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, Sydney.
Let me stop sharing.
All right. Hi, everyone. I don't have a presentation because I am not as thorough as Christina is, but I'm really good at talking, so we're going to do that. So I graduated in June, this past June, from the combined degree program with the Master of Information and the Master of Museum Studies, with my concentration in MI being Library and Information Science. So these programs might seem very confusing and weird with the names and the industries and things like that, as there's industries that are either confusing to people or they're not very familiar with. So what's incredible about these programs is the flexibility. I come from a sport management background. So when they say you can come from any background, you can come from any background. So do not be afraid of not having the proper experience or not having knowledge about whatever topic you're really interested in, which is one of my biggest pieces of advice is during your time at the iSchool, don't be afraid to take a course in something that sounds really interesting, but you have zero experience in or sounds really intimidating. I was a student that was really scared of user experience design. It sounded super technical. It sounded super scary. That I wouldn't be good at it. And then I took a user experience design course in my last semester. And I started kicking myself for not taking a course sooner and really pushing myself. You are surrounded by the most incredible faculty, staff, and students at the iSchool. And if there is something you either find that you are not interested in or you are not good at, you have so many people to support you as you find your way through that. And I find that in a lot of instances, finding what you don't like is just as important as finding what you do like. And Christina was also talking about how you can kind of change trajectories. And I'm a testament to that. I obviously came from sports, and then I decided to look into libraries and information management and museums. I found myself actually combining my passions by working at the Hockey Hall of Fame. I walked in one day and asked if they needed an intern. And I kind of just created that opportunity for myself. And it eventually became a job. And it was a really great opportunity to get hands-on experience I wouldn't have gotten if I hadn't just been bold enough to walk in and say, I want to work for free for you. And that was especially scary as an international student from the US who had moved to Toronto, really knowing no one here. So take those risks when you have the incredible support and the opportunities that the iSchool is able to give you, like the work study. I did the work study and made lifelong friends there, as well as other students in the program. Christina also mentioned how scary it is. And you get really intimidated. You sit in class and you are surrounded by people that sound so smart and are talking about things you would have never considered in your lifetime. But I find that that's a huge strength, is that the diversity of backgrounds of your fellow students allow you to learn almost as much as you learn from your professors. So definitely take the time to really think about what your fellow classmates are saying and hear about their backgrounds too, because I learned a lot from people that had backgrounds in architecture and archaeology and history and things like that. So it gave me a lot of different perspectives to learn from. And as Christina said, definitely there's a lot of different ways to take especially the Master of Information and apply it to different things. As I started at the iSchool, I volunteered a lot and I got involved in a bunch of organizations, including volunteering at events like this for prospective students. And as I continued to volunteer, it became my work study, became a couple of contracts, and now I'm actually working at the Rotman School of Management as the Registrar Administrative Assistant, which when you look at my degrees might seem like it's not a straight path, which it's not. But what's amazing is that the skills are really applicable in a lot of different ways. So being creative in terms of how you can apply your degrees to your prospective career goals is really important. So I find that really don't let imposter syndrome take you away from the experience, is that everyone has imposter syndrome. The professors have imposter syndrome, even after 20 years of experience in their field and having all of the knowledge that they've gained in their careers. Do not be afraid to take those risks take that class that sounds really bad. If it's that bad in the beginning, you can drop it. And what's great too is that you have an incredible staff backing you. So there's a lot of flexibility to the program. If you want to take courses outside of the faculty, outside of U of T, they're able to make that happen. And you're able to really curate your experience at the iSchool, and definitely do not take it for granted, because even the 3 years I did flies. If you can also connect with me via LinkedIn, I will put my email as well. And thank you guys so much, and good luck with the application process.
And both Christina and Sydney were part of my work study team, and I'm really sad that they left me. I'm really happy for them that they're very successful and wonderful, but also very sad for me that they left me. But anyway, so if you have any questions for them.
I
If
have a
anyone
question.
has any questions right now, feel free to unmute yourself or text it in the chat.
For Christina, I wanted to ask how did you end up working at IBM? Like, was it a straight path, or was it like you had to build up to it?
So IBM offers co-op opportunities. So if you are in the co-op program, that's an opportunity that you could take. Personally, for me, I didn't choose to pursue co-op. So I've explored in industries that I was comfortable with. So that was education and arts. So I started off working as a UX designer within education. Having the teaching certificate and knowing how the industry operates was really helpful, and it leveraged me to be in those positions. And then around the time of graduation, they were looking for early career professionals. So I went through their process to apply online and go through the interview. And I started quite soon after graduation. Yeah.
That's really cool.
I also have a question for Christina. So I realized that a lot of the current UX UI jobs that are out there right now require 3 to 5 years of experience before like entering that industry. So I'm wondering like did you experience that, or do you have any tips on like how we can kind of combat that, or like what ways what options do we have when
That's a really great question. I also noticed that a lot of them require work experience to be in an entry-level position, but your co-op experience can be a work experience. For example, IBM offers co-ops that's 16 months, and that is a long time for you to build your career and professional exposure. For me, myself, I've continued to find opportunities where I can have this UX title. And it doesn't always have to be a paid position. It's a matter of how much impact you made. I've tried to look for it, and I've leaned towards paid positions as one method of making sure that I can finance my own education. However, if you're more open to exploring other options, there's definitely ways within your 2 years of master's program that you can really build 1 year or more work experience prior to looking for opportunities in the industry for the full time. No problem.
So there is a question that was asked by a student previously in this sign-up form for this event for an alumni. As a user experience designer, what softwares do you use on a daily basis?
The tools are really dependent on different companies. So as an early career professional, I think it's good to expose yourself to a lot of different tools. But ultimately, what you end up using is what your team is currently using in their organization. So for my case, I've worked with different teams within IBM. So even within one company, there's different tools that's being used in terms of prototyping. We've used Adobe XD, we've used Sketch. We go for our hand drawings and our whiteboards. We use Mural for facilitation, Trello boards for project management. And we have our internal tools for communication, like email tools and Slack we use often. Yeah, but ultimately these tools operate in very similar way, and they're looking for how fast you can adapt and how fast you can learn. So you can, watch tutorial videos online, and they don't really depend on your expertise in tools as a measure of your candidacy. It's more about how you approach the problem and how your critical thinking skills and your teamwork skills that becomes more important than specific tools. Those change really fast. So even as someone who works in the field, we're always trying our best to keep up to date with different releases of these tools. So great to be exposed to as many as possible.
Thank you, Christina. There is also another question from a student. How important is it to do a master's for UX design?
I guess this is my very personal opinion, and I've of course chosen to do my master's in UX design, so I might be speaking from more biased perspective. But for me, I think it's very important. If you've noticed, there's a lot of undergraduate programs that's being offering fields related to UX. We come across a lot of boot camps or continuing studies that offers this knowledge. And I think skills is one thing that you can gain from working in the field and going more of an experiential learning path. You'll get those skills, but growing as a master's student, you expand on skills that's beyond UX. And I think that's about teamwork. You're working with your team for 3 months or longer, depending on how long your courses are. You are building your critical thinking skills. You're presenting your research. So we really go in depth with a lot of our projects. And I think those are really reflective of not just UX skills, but you as a master's level student. So I would, of course, having someone who has the master's degree in it and had a very, had a career progression with that degree, I think it is very valuable.
Thank you so much for answering.
No problem.
So again, with like the student questions, I guess this would be a question for both Sydney and Christina. So what courses or certifications did you do in your undergrad outside of school that brought you closer to your career?
So I didn't do very much, actually. So probably my big thing that set me apart is that I was a student athlete at my university, and in the US, we take it very seriously. So that was something that I was able to gain a lot of skills from, and then I had a lot of opportunities from there to take parts in various workshops. And so I think that was something I was able to draw on in my ability to individually work on myself and to improve myself, but simultaneously being able to work in a team setting, which from my one user experience course, I know is very, very important. So Christina made a lot of mention about working in a team. And I say that in any industry, that is incredibly important. And in my current job, that is something that is vital, especially in a world where we're remote. We can't just walk into someone's office and collaborate with them. It takes a lot of organization and keeping constant communication. So those were skills I was really able to draw on in my undergrad. And then as I went through grad school, I found that I was getting more and more involved because there were so many opportunities. I was co-president of 3 different clubs. I did 2 different jobs. I was on both student body government. So I found that I kind of was kicking myself for not doing that in my undergrad. So I decided, especially in grad school, I was going to make up for it. And that being that gung-ho and really just that willing to try anything is what got me to my current position.
I guess for me on my end, in my undergrad as well, so being a UX designer was not my long-term dream. I only came across this program and this field through being exposed to Faculty of Information. So I guess ultimately, it did have some connections. So for example, in my undergrad, I got involved in a lot of opportunities to be a teacher. I worked with people from different ages. I was leading a lot of classes, giving a lot of presentations as a teacher. And that really is helpful skills when I work in my current role. We have to plan our research, which has a lot of parallels with how teachers come up with their lesson plans, or the way we have to communicate our research results to our stakeholders and teach them our findings and teach them through the design processes. That has a lot of parallel with skills that you possess as a teacher. So that had ultimately strong connection, things that I was doing in my undergrad. As Sydney said, when I really decided to pursue a career as a UX designer, I got involved in opportunities that was really relevant to becoming in that role. And I worked with Andrea as a work study student doing graphic design work, and that has been helpful, having that visual design skills in my UX designer positions. I worked as a UX designer part-time, leveraging within the education field, so leveraging my prior undergrad degree in Bachelor of Education along with my master's. So it, in the end, all came together, but the skill-wise and what you get exposed to, I think it really will lead you to something that you're interested in. So rather than following other people's path, it's really about finding out what is it that you like to do and what kind of industry or work that you're interested in pursuing in the long term.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely something that I have found while applying to jobs, and I think is just an important in grad school, is really look at what you've done and see what those skills are that you have gained from it. Even just group projects or something that you focus your research on. Don't just look at those and go, oh, it was just an assignment. It's also experience. So I know that especially going into the workforce, I even went back and looked at my syllabi and said, what assignments did I do? What topics did we cover? And then I found that my skills were really applicable to what they were looking for. So really have an open mind, really look at how skills are transferable, and that will really, really benefit you.
I have a question if nobody else wants to ask. How has COVID-19 affected the industry you work in? And do you think it'll be a long-term change? I don't know, like this is kind of relevant, especially because we're going into UXD or like we want to. So I'd be interested to know.
In terms of my day-to-day work, on my personal end, it hasn't changed too much because working in a large global company, I'm used to working with people from all over the world and connecting through them virtually. So looking at that, my day-to-day work styles and my day-to-day work schedule hasn't really changed much. My day was already full of meetings online and conference calls. So this new way of working at home just changed the setting. Of course, you do miss out on the actual in-person collaboration that we used to have in the office. So that's a little bit disappointing, but then we're making up in different ways. As a whole in the industry, I definitely think there are some industries as a UX designer that could have an impact. Travel industries are somewhere they do hire UX designers, but when they do experience kind of struggle in their business, it's not things have changed. Within large company that I'm part of, like IBM, we've had some change in our directions, different priorities, different project priorities and different technology priorities has changed to support the initiative. So there are changes happening like that. But you can never tell. For example, I still don't know whether we're going back to the office at all or what that back to office protocols like. Everything is kind of up in the air, just like how universities are up in the air right now. But I think looking at the big picture, technology and UX industry is one of the least hard hit than other businesses or fields.
Yeah, I would say I'm dealing a lot with what you guys are dealing with as students. I think it's been a very interesting experience. I'm only in the first 2 weeks of my job, so it's definitely been quite an experience trying to get to know your coworkers in an environment where you're trying to learn things, and the teaching involves a lot more planned out effort as people try to schedule around their day. But it definitely shows the flexibility, and especially being within the Faculty of Information when we made the switch to online. It was in the last 3 weeks of being a student, and I was also working for the faculty. So that switch online was incredible to see the faculty and staff do that so quickly. And some professors had hours notice, some had a few days, and the staff members continued to work really, really hard through the summer in order to make it as seamless of a transition as possible for the students. So I think that there's been some benefits, such as the ability for international students to really get the prospective student feel that our information days provide, because they can now log on. So there's a lot of great opportunities that are expanded because of being online. However, there is a lot of difficulties. I work heavily in scheduling and exams, and especially with Rotman in the business school, we have students all over the world, almost in every time zone. So it's been really complicated trying to figure out how to do exams properly, how to make it as convenient as possible for students who, hopefully don't have to do this late into the night or really early in the morning. And then dealing with technical problems too, as I'm sure that some of you have dealt with Quirkus before. So I also did a lot of work with the online classes for the first 6-7 weeks of the semester, and being on hand for any technical problems. So it's amazing just to see what pops up in terms of problems, and it really shows that ability to problem solve quickly, and being flexible as well, as we've all had to be over the past 8 months, being flexible and being really compassionate and understanding and empathetic is skills that are becoming more and more important.
Sydney, there's another question for you from a student. How would you say the work, education, and educational experience in the States compares to Canada? For example, if we were to look for opportunities in the US later on, would it be much different?
Yeah, so I find that what's really interesting about Canada and the US is that there is so much overlap, and then just these very random things that pop up and are just very, very glaring, that are just very different. Overall, there will be very few issues. Luckily, the US and Canada are very collaborative and have a lot of overlap in terms of culture. It's very small things, like with work and education, I find that people very rarely leave their province in order to especially go to school, at least in Ontario from the people that I've met. So it's very interesting to see that a good amount of people, especially in undergrad, stay in their home province. But what's really cool with grad school is that I found that a lot of people in my cohorts were from the prairies and from the East Coast, and a good amount of students from the States. So overall, there wouldn't be a problem. Your only problem would really be immigration, as the US is a lot pickier when it comes to letting people in than Canada is. Probably, the best bet for me with immigration was to come here and get an education. And that is probably what really helped me, was being able to establish those roots and pay out a lot of money. And then Canada was more willing to keep me. So in terms of culture and all of that, it will be a really easy transition, and bringing in that other mindset is really amazing to bring to the table, because America does tend to be, and I can say this, America-centric. And we are such a big country that has so many different states and so many little cultures within those states that it's really nice to kind of look and go, oh, even an English-speaking country on this continent is very different and brings in a lot of different perspectives. So I find that people are always very intrigued when I tell them that I'm American, and them being able to really learn about it and learn about how different it is when you can just assume that we're basically the same. So in terms of getting a job there, you'll be just fine.
Thank you, Sydney. So I guess there's one more question for Andrea. So is the second semester of GPA considered when we apply this January, since the first deadline is January and the other deadline is at March?
So we will use the your interim grades, so the grades that you've completed to date, to make a decision. And then if you are offered admission based on those grades, then your offer will be conditional upon receiving your final transcript by the end of August. So we will just use what you've completed to date to make a decision.
If anyone else has any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat or open your mic and your camera.
One more question, sorry. Is the interview for the double blue entry in person, or is it through Zoom?
It will be virtual, yeah.
Virtual, okay.
So someone asked, do we have another meeting to talk about the other concentrations? So I guess I could answer this one. So hopefully, yes, we will be hosting another iSchool information session in our winter semester. And maybe we can have Professor St. Cyr come and talk about maybe ISD or human-centered data science, or maybe like another professor to come talk about this. But yes, this is something that we're hoping for.
Absolutely. And I also wanted to say our information days, you can attend those as well. Our next one is coming up on November 28th. And then we'll have a concentration liaison for each of our concentrations and breakout rooms for each of the concentrations. So you can learn more about what each of those concentrations are. So exactly what Olivier just spoke about today would be the same type of format for our information days as well. So definitely feel free to attend that day as well.
Thank you, Andrea. So we have one more question. This was also from the Google Forms. So if my current transcript has a GWR on it and I'm currently waiting for the appointment, would iSchool hear my explanation, or would they just reject me right away?
No, they wouldn't just reject you right away. No, definitely not. So yeah, so we will definitely, because of the current situation, for sure. You know, the review of the admission process is certainly going to look a bit different. So definitely, I mean, I wouldn't wait, like for students, for example, who might be thinking of waiting to submit their transcripts maybe till, you know, closer to the like final deadline. I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that, just because we do admit on a rolling basis. You want to get your application in before it gets full. So definitely it's better to apply now rather than wait closer to the deadline.
So I just have like a really quick question, but how many applicants does the iSchool accept usually per year?
Yeah, so we have about 400 MI students that we admit each year. And then for the museum studies is 40.
So does anyone else have any other questions?
Last year you did a, like, people can come in, drop in courses. Are you going to be doing something similar this year?
Sorry, like if you wanted to sit in like on a lecture? Yeah, you can certainly still do that. Absolutely. So what you want to do is you want to just reach out to the professor teaching that class, and then just ask them if it's okay if you sit in on their class. And they're usually really flexible and have no problem with that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions?
And we're going to also do like events in February. We're going to have like mini lecture series as well. And so we're going to do, so you can attend any of those sample lectures.
So there's another question from a student. What is the best way to score data analyst internships? I would assume like also experience as well. Do you search on Indeed, reach out to people on LinkedIn, etc.?
Yeah. So I mentioned, we've been around for about 88 years. So we have a lot of connections with different industry partners and employers. And so certainly you can work with our careers officers to help you with those connections, again, because we do have a lot of connections with different employers. So you can certainly obtain an internship through that means. But if there is, like, you are certainly welcome to go and look for an internship yourself through LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever you want to do. So certainly go and do that yourself. But again, you do have the support there of the faculty to help you with that.
Thank you for answering, Andrea. If anyone has like any last minute questions, if not, we will start wrapping up. But yeah, last chance, guys. If anyone has a question, feel free to text it in the chat or unmute yourself.
And I'll just share my screen again with you so that you have my contact information in case you weren't able to jot it down before. So admissions.iSchool@utoronto.ca, and I can answer your questions then as well.
Sydney has also placed her email in the chat. So yeah, guys, feel free to like take a screenshot. So I believe we don't have any more questions. I don't see them in the chat. So I guess we'll just start wrapping up. But yeah, Andrea, Sydney, Christina, and Professor Sincere, I know he left, but thank you so much for attending this session. It has been such a big pleasure to have you in here and to answer all of our questions. So yeah, we're really excited to have you here. And we would be really happy to host like a part 2 of the iSchool session sometimes in the winter semester as well. So Andrea, we'll email you.
Sounds good. Thank you all very much for having us here tonight. And we look forward to reading your applications.
Yeah, thank you so much. Please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Yeah, so everyone, before we leave, I just want to mention that this session is recorded. I will first stop recording.